Okay, so for my personal lesson that I would be doing in the classroom to include inclusion in the classroom will have to be about diversity and self acceptance. Um, so I chose the book One Green Apple. It is by Eve Bunting, and it's a really awesome book. It's a story about this girl named Farah. And Farah comes to the United States with her family, and she goes to a new school. The school's a bit different than her previous one because none of the students look like her. She is Muslim, and so she has trouble fitting in. She's very different from everyone else because she wears a hijab. Her skin color is different, the way she dresses is different, and so she has a really hard time um, fitting in with the students. And the story is just basically about her journey of self accepting, and she finally self accepts herself, or is proud of her heritage and who she is, because they go on a she looks at a tree and all of the other apples are red, um, and she sees a green apple and she's like, oh, I'm the green apple because I'm the same as everyone else. It's just I look a bit different, and that helps me stand out. So she later learns to accept herself, and she is better able to work with others and all that good stuff. So, how does this play into the lesson? Well, the lesson is going to be about students looking at the theme of the story. So it would start with me, the teacher, or whoever's giving the lesson, um, going and telling the students about the word diversity. So you would explain what the word diversity is, give examples of what diversity might look like. You might then want to have students actually pair share, because chances are some of them might know a bit about diversity, or after you've given them all these examples, they might want to chime in too. So that would be a good time to do a think, pair, share. After that, you'll want to share with them what that is. You'll then want to go on and talk about how diversity is something that should be celebrated, but unfortunately, sometimes being different is not necessarily easy to come by for oneself or with others, just because of the self-consciousness. And then after that, you would want to introduce the actual book, give a little background about what it is. So you might want to say, oh, this book, One Green Apple, was about a girl named Farah who came to the United States and is in a new school environment where she is having difficulty fitting in because she is different. You then go and have students listen to your read aloud. And after that, you might want to stop between certain areas, especially when it's where she's feeling self-doubt, or where she learns about the green apple, just to do some checking for understandings, because this book, it is a high level book. It is a it's a it's a picture book, but it's a lengthy picture book, and it has a lot of literary elements. It has a lot of symbolism, a lot of tone, and for students that are exposed to that, I mean, it's still a little difficult for them to understand the book if you just read it all in one. So by stopping and checking for understanding, having some discussions as you're reading it. It would make it a whole lot easier for the parts where you actually want them to come up with themes and all of that. Anyhow, so you'll want to do that, and then after you're finished reading, then that's when you, with your classroom, start looking at possible themes in the story, because that will help them understand how the diversity and acceptance goes with the book. So you'll want to first explain to them what exactly is the word theme, just to remind them. And so then you'll be like, okay, so now we're going to create a chart. So you'll have a chart, and in that chart it will say one green apple, possible themes. And then around them, you as the teacher and the students are going to create kind of like a web where there's different directions, and in those different directions there's possible themes in there. You'll want students to go ahead and pair share with their partner, or with however you pair share them with, possible themes that they found throughout the story. You really want it so that they have themes that are actually going with the diversity part, because there's possible themes that are not quite that much, so you want to skew them to something like that. So you might say something like this: okay friends, so we'll be looking at the themes of one green apple. Now remember, earlier today we talked about diversity and accepting ourselves, so think about that and what possible themes relate to that. So then you don't have to worry about having students say completely off-topic themes, because you really want it to be centered on that. And so then you'll share with students. Students will come up and write on the chart paper and write down the possible themes and give textual evidence on it, so that at the end, when that's all done, you'll then go ahead and explain to students about the possible, how these themes all correlate to diversity and accepting oneself and celebrating differences between each other. So then once you're finished doing that, you'll then want to explain and ask students that, based on the themes, based on the character Farah and all of that, what are some possible similarities that you yourself have experienced with her? Have you ever found yourself being different from someone else? Did you ever find yourself having a hard time accepting yourself because you're different? Have you ever just anything that has to do with relating to Farah in the terms of diversity and acceptance? Again, you don't want the students to skew off topic, so you really have to make sure that when you're asking these questions and when you're doing this lesson, the students really understand, okay, this is what my teacher is guiding me towards. You want it so that it's less ambiguous to move around. Yes, it's awesome to have kids say these fabulous things, but when you're wanting to teach a diversity lesson, it's important to just skew it towards that. So anyhow, then you'll have them think, pair, share again, and you'll then want to share out loud, just because you want them to connect to that. Because one thing's reading the book, but the other thing is actually understanding what the book is about, or I'm sorry, the other thing is actually relating and understanding deeply beyond the book itself. So you'll want to do that. And then after you've shared all that awesome stuff, that's where the fun part happens. The class will be making a collage of themselves. So it is a collage that has anything from fabric, magazine posts, words, markers, all of this beautiful craft that represents who they are as an individual in terms of diversity, individuality, their preferences, just what makes them unique and what makes them different. So you'll want to explain to them that they'll be doing that. You'll want to model how it will look like. And then after that, you might want to show them some examples, because again, if you're teaching 3rd through 5th, possibly even 6th grade, it's always good to have models for the littles, because they, even the older kids, but they definitely need some type of modeling or some type of example, so that they understand what it is that is expected of them. So during this time, students can go ahead and go back to their desks or flexible seating, whatever you prefer, and they will start thinking about items or colors or words that really represent who they are as an individual. And so they'll be creating these beautiful collages that they will later on go on and share with the class. During this time, they'll have that time to do that, as well as on a separate sheet of paper, you'll want them to go ahead and give just a small description of why they chose these things to identify themselves. So why did they choose the color red? Or why did they choose to say this word about themselves? Just so that it helps the other students understand them a bit more. So you'll give them some time to do that. You'll walk around, obviously, to make sure that kids are on task, or just so that they're doing their work correctly. If just clarifying any questions that they have, helping students out. And then once that part is done, then you'll go ahead and have friends go ahead and put their items around the classroom so that they can participate on a gallery walk. Now, a gallery walk is a place, it's kind of like a museum. You go, and in different parts of the classroom, there's different, there can be problems, they can be texts, they can be art, which is what we would be doing for this lesson. Just anywhere, and have students go ahead and walk around them like if they were at a museum. And then, so they'll be doing that. Once they're finished with that, you'll go ahead and want them to come and meet you back to the carpet, because once you're at the carpet, you'll want to just go ahead and do the closure section of this lesson. During that time, you'll want to readdress the objective, readdress the book and the themes that they've came up with, and then just discuss what they saw around during the gallery walks, what they saw as they were looking around, and what they noticed, maybe something that they wondered, just so that they can see who they are, and so that they really have a better in-depth understanding of themselves and others. And then at the very end of all of that discussion, you'll want to do a closure questions, because you always want to leave the students thinking about the lesson. So you'll want to go ahead and pose one to three questions that pertain to diversity. So you might want to ask a question like, why is it important to celebrate diversity? It can be, how can we help new students in the classroom that come from different places? Just questions that are really geared towards that grade level or age group, that will help them really think critically about diversity. And then with that, you would actually finish the lesson. Now, you might be thinking, oh my gosh, that lesson is super duper long. And the answer is yes, it's pretty lengthy, because you do the whole reading and that activity with the theme and evidence, and then you have all this cool collage and the what is it, the gallery walk. So you might want to split it up into two different days. That's what I would personally do. But if you have all the time in the world, which most of us don't in everyday classrooms, you can do it in one day. But I would recommend it being a 2-day lesson. So that's basically the gist of the lesson. I do have linked down the actual lesson template with everything. So if I went over something too fast or wasn't as clear, you can look down and it will be there.